All right, my friends, Brian here with VetteSource on a finally fall Saturday for Houston. Good Lord, yesterday we set a record. It was over 90 degrees yesterday for, what was yesterday, October 23rd. So today what I'm gonna do is, because I have been deep in the weeds in cars and everything wanting to fail at once, had to fix my truck again, of all things. The power steering pump decided to shear the output shaft, of all things, which is odd, but I guess that's something that happens with the hydro boost. The orange flame Corvette here decided to destroy the alternator and then break the bracket, so I had to fix that. But in the meantime, since I've been with you last time I was with you guys, I did manage to get some more done on our yellow Formula 350 tune port injection build. So I'm kind of just give you a real quick look at it before I walk in the garage here, and we'll talk about this LT4 engine I teased in the title. So you can see here, we did get our passenger side cylinder head off, and it actually was a lot easier, a lot cleaner unit to get off. And we've done our basic cleaning over here. So what we'll do next is I'm gonna go ahead and get that cylinder head cleaned up, rebuilt, tore down, cleaned up, rebuilt, and then I'm gonna start painting over here, reassembling. Probably will change the starter, I'll change the water pump, change the AC condenser, just because I'm in here, and we'll keep going at this. We're, you know, like I said, we're way down at the bottom of the rabbit hole now, but I can actually see myself starting to climb back up from it, so we'll get there. So that's basically it for this. For an update really on what we're doing there. Let me walk in the garage, because today I figured, Saturday being, I didn't really get that much time to do what I wanted to. I figured we'd talk about a motor again, since I do like talking about motors. So give me a second to get in the garage and I'll be right back. We are back in the garage here again, my favorite place to be. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you, talk a little bit about it, this LT4 engine that's in the competition yellow Corvette 1996 LT4 car that I've featured a few times on the channel here. If you haven't seen it before, there's a link at the top. Now, 96 is, of course, I've talked about the last year of the C4s, and quite frankly, the best one they made. There were a lot of running improvements they made to these cars over the years, and these 96s are hands down just really, really great cars. You know, I joke they're kind of like the Rodney Dangerfield of Corvettes right now. People just don't pay much attention to them, but they still look really good, and they've got a lot of great features, a lot of great improvements that they finally managed to add in after 14 years. I'll probably make another video talking about differences between these later Corvettes and the earlier C4s, but for now, just to recap. So what we're looking at is our 96 LT4. Now, the LT4 engine is unique. Let's go ahead and we'll pop the hood here, so you can see the LT4 is a very unique powertrain in that, unlike most other motors that General Motors, Chevrolet produces, it was not corporatized, meaning it was not shared among the other manufacturers, with the exception of about 100 SLP SS Camaros that came out with LT4s the next year in 97. And that was kind of a skunkworks project between General Motors and SLP. So this 96 LT4 you can kind of consider basically just the going away party, the hot rod version of the LT1, which came out in 1992, which I've also featured the LT1 because it's a really great engine as well. Now, if you remember some of your early 90s production stats, obviously we have the early 90s, you know, the ZR1 motor. That is actually an original ZR1 motor. It's not a supercharged. That is a 1990 LT5 twin cam 5.7 Lotus design Mercury Marine built engine, which I'll feature that one maybe another time. But when they ended production on the 95 ZR1s, they kind of were left with no more halo engine for the car, and 96 was kind of a way to send them off really well. So what the engineers basically came up with was a hot rod motor, factory hot rod motor for the Corvettes, and it was the LT4. Now, a lot of times you'll look at these and you go, well, other than a red intake and, you know, a plate specifying Grand Sport on it, what's the difference? There's actually a whole lot. Now, go back a little bit. When you went in to order a new Corvette in '96, there were two powertrains. There was the LT1 and there's the LT4. The LT4 was, if I remember correctly, it was either, I think it was a $1,950 option. Don't quote me. I think that's what it's been a long time since I was selling them, so I don't remember what the exact figure was. But if you got the LT4 motor, the only way it came was the LT4 with a 6-speed manual. You could not get an automatic with an LT4. Vice versa, you could not get a 6-speed with an LT1. They made both those transmissions exclusive to each motor. So all 96 Corvettes with an LT1 are automatic. All 1996 LT4 Corvettes are 6-speeds. If anybody tells you otherwise, they're just misinformed or lying about it. There's no way the factory, there was no override to it. There was nothing you could do. That was just the way they did it. So looking again, like I said, you look at this motor and visually it looks kind of like an LT1 at first glance. It's got the same basic composite valve covers, same basic architecture on your accessory package, your inlets all the same. Everything looks identical, but what the engineers did is they really went old school hot rod techniques with this. So from the bottom up, I'm going to kind of describe what they did. So all LT1 and 4 Corvettes from the factory are 4-bolt mains. That's one thing a lot of people don't know about. They're 4-bolt from the factory. So if you're looking for an LT motor, you find one out of a Camaro or a Caprice, you may actually get a 2-bolt main. But if it's a Corvette, it's a 4-bolt main automatically. So these came with a 4-bolt main with an undercut and rolled crankshaft for the higher RPMs. It also had modular iron 4-bolt main bearing caps because they wanted to be able to handle that higher RPM as well. The pistons are also modified, and they bumped the compression ratio up from 10.4 to 10.8. So you're running almost 11-to-1 compression in a modern day motor, which is quite impressive if you think about it, right? The motor going up a little further, we've got a steel roller crankshaft, or not crankshaft, timing chain, and then it had a much more aggressive hydraulic roller camshaft that had more lift, duration, overlap on it. You also had bigger aluminum heads with 195cc intake ports, which were bigger than the factory. The LT1s, I want to say the LT1s were around 160, 170, I don't remember. They also have hollow sodium-filled valves that are 2-inch on the intake, 155s on the exhaust, that are lighter, so you could have more of that valve lift and more RPMs without floating the valves, okay? You also got, I don't know if I can show it from here, but this motor also came from the factory with, honest to goodness, crane, GM crane 1.6 roller rockers from the factory with the adjustable nut and everything on them. So they're actually quite cool. The intake itself is even different. It's not just powder coated red, which it is powder coated red, but it's also got an intake port design change. And there's also, if you look at it, the LT4s, one way to give them away is there's no EGR system on an LT4. LT4s, they did away with the exhaust gas recirculation system. So you also, to top this all off with the more aggressive characteristics of the motor, you also got 28 pound-per-hour injectors. So all in all, this is a rather potent package, but if you don't know about the internals, you just look at it and think somebody powder coated the motor. Now, what that did was, from the factory at least, their specifications was you had 330 horsepower at 5,800 RPM on this, but on the LT1, you had 300 horsepower at 5,000 RPM, right? And then you also got 340 foot-pounds of torque at 4,000 versus 340 foot-pounds of torque at 4,500. So it really beefed up the power of this motor. Now this motor would also spin up to 6,300 RPM was your red line, and this car actually has an 8,000 RPM tack like a ZR1 does to account for the higher RPM. So part of what they did here was they were basically preparing for the fact that you were going to be revving this motor up a lot higher. So you got that different gauge cluster in there. And then the 6-speed transmission is built, don't get me a line, I can't even say the name right. It's a ZF company out of Germany. They build a lot of transmissions for trucks and dump trucks, and they even build them for Mustangs. I think the Cobra Mustangs that were supercharged during the 2000s had those. But the transmissions were what could handle the torque output of the ZR1, so they stuck it in the Grand Sport motors here and did these. So all in all, for 1996, GM made 6,359 LT4 cars with the 6-speed, and of those, 1,000 of those were the Grand Sports, which are the blue Corvettes with a white stripe. You also had some of them get put into the collector edition cars. Those are the silver cars with the badging, the custom badging, the collector's edition. So the rest of them are left. You could actually order this Grand Sport motor in a regular old Corvette like this. This is just a base, not a base, but this is just a regular Corvette, competition yellow, with the LT4 6-speed. And interestingly enough about these, many of these LT4s came as what I call strippers. They didn't have any options on them whatsoever. They had the motor, the 6-speed, they had no power anything, accessories, except for the windows. They had no power seats, they had manual air conditioning, they didn't even have a CD player, they just had a tape player in them. And I'm wondering if they kind of pushed those out just as far as people wanting to do SCCA racing, because it was really popular in the 1990s still. And I'm wondering if that was why, because I remember during my time as a salesman, I sold 1996 Corvettes new. Every time we get a batch of LT4s in, out of 5 of them, 3 of them were strippers. It was kind of funny. So it was always kind of a trick, you know, kind of like, oh yeah, you don't need all those accessories, they'll just break later on. And you know, a lot of guys would like that, and even me. I like comfort features, but the truth is, on my cars, I just like to be able to tinker with the motors, and I can adjust the seat manually if I need to. So anyway, the other unique thing about this is, outside of this year's production, this was not cross-pollinated to any other car or any other architecture other than those SLP Camaros I talked about. So this was it. This is truly a 1-year only factory hot rod motor from General Motors, and then of course immediately the next year in 97 they went to the LS architecture, which everybody goes for. Now another kind of cool fact about these is that this being rated at 330, the LS1 that came out in 97 was rated at 345, so they're really not that much more powerful if you look at it. And if you have the right driver, right conditions, and balance the right way, a lot of people feel like these are very underrated. Now the ZR1 ended production at 405 horsepower in 95. This rated at 330. A lot of people feel like that GM just didn't want to knock the hat, you know, the brass hat, the king's hat off the ZR1, so they underrated these on purpose. I will tell you, seat of the pants feel, you know, I've even done a driving video with this car. These LT4s are extremely strong. I personally have seen guys prep these correctly with no mods, you know, other than maybe some sticky DOT slicks, run very, very low 13s, high 12-second quarter miles with these, with a good driver in the right conditions. But with that being said, these are not laying around for everybody to find, because, you know, with 6,400 of these motors built, there's just not that many of them out left there. We're talking 24 years ago. So even if we're being conservative and only 30% of them have been wrecked, you know, you're talking maybe 4,000 cars left if you're lucky, and probably less, because now what's happened is, if you look at 96 prices of 96 Corvettes, the LT4 cars are the ones that are starting to creep up in value, because again, we're talking in the Corvette world, 1-year only motor, exclusive to the Corvette, blah blah blah, you know how it goes. So just thought I'd kind of do a little detail on this. I didn't have time to get back into working on anything today, but I wanted to get you guys a video out, just to let you know where I'm at. I'll probably be tinkering this week with that 04 convertible parts car I got to tear down. May even tinker with the old Thumper, the big block over here, later on if I've got time. I need to do a little wiring on that starter side so I can fire it up and get it ready for maybe some fall time driving. So we'll check in later this week if I've got time, see what's going on with you guys, and let me know what you think. If you got any personal stories about driving or riding an LT4, let me know how you enjoyed it, and we'll be back soon. Talk to you guys then. Thanks.